And we're live. It's a Wednesday afternoon. You're watching Innovation Fika with Donny, 2:30 p.m. Swedish, every Wednesday, like clockwork. Episode 88, Innovation Fika with Donny. Every Wednesday, I go live with an interview with a cool person, an entrepreneur, an alumni from KTH, somebody with great ideas, but always an interesting person that has something to add value to our everyday lives in this super short coffee break chat. Fika, of course, in Swedish, that means coffee break chat with people who are really interesting and that enhances your life. Kind of definition of Fika, sort of. I will just say that all of the recordings of my Innovation Fikas are on YouTube, and all of my written content, because I don't post daily, but I actually write daily about entrepreneurship and startups and inspiration and things on LinkedIn and so forth. They're all saved on my Medium page. So look for Donny S. Ligones on Medium and Innovation Fika on YouTube, and you'll find the soon it's 87 recordings there now, and 88 this evening after this one. So enough about me, enough about that. We're actually here to speak to, again, as usually, a super interesting guest with a really interesting subject today. I will invite into the studio from Green Room. Here we go. In Teo Härén. How wonderful to have you on the show today.
Why, thank you so much. Nice to be here.
The funny thing is that we actually haven't met for I don't know how many years, but it feels like I've sort of known you and your brother sort of had you in my life all the time ever since we did meet. When did we actually meet last time, you and me?
I wonder if wasn't it at the TEDx event?
No, don't say that, because that
I think it is.
This is actually a cool thing as well, because Teo was one of the founders of one of the first TEDx, the first TEDx event ever in Sweden was
in Europe, outside of America, actually. Yeah.
Yes, the first TEDx event outside of America. It was 2009, right?
I think so. Yes, I think so.
I think it was 2009. It was like the first event, and we were like, sort of, okay, what is this thing? And we were actually in your house up in the mid Sweden. Sorry, I'm talking about you and where you are, but let's back up and let's say, as we always say in the beginning of the show, dear guest, welcome in. Who are you and what do you do? Please give us your own presentation, your own words.
Why? Thank you so much. Well, my passion and my interest for the last almost 25 years is the topic of creativity, especially business creativity, and that's why I'm so happy to be on this Fika Innovation broadcast. I have written 4 books on the topic of creativity, and I must have read like 100 or something. My first 18 years or something was mostly working with workshops and speeches, actually around the world. I think I visited something like 25 countries and teaching the topic of creativity to IBM, the Swedish Royal Palace, Nike, or whatever, schools, politicians, you name it, I was there. And the topic and the passion was to inspire people to become even more creative than they already are.
Sorry for interrupting you, but
no.
This is the question that we hear is that, can you learn to become more creative?
Oh, it's an interesting question. I have asked maybe 10,000 people that question from the stage. And I would say that 99% would answer yes to that question. So most people at least believe that you can become even more creative. Now, it's very hard to do studies on it because creativity is hard to measure and hard to define, innovation as well. So it's hard to give you proof in numbers, but I find it almost enough that 99% of people say, I believe so. And I think that's a good start, because if you believe that, you can start learning tools and give yourself inspiration. And in that way, I guess you will become more creative.
Totally.
But it's a hard topic.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting your presentation there. I mean, this is we could do a separate Fika on that only. Let's do that. Let's schedule another one on that subject only. But okay, moving forward then. And then also but connected to today's actual subject then, now you also run a retreat, right?
Yes, I do. A business retreat, a place where you go to ponder over the ideas that you have. Give yourself kind of a place for your brain to relax and give yourself new ideas by not giving yourself more input, but rather coming to this retreat and, and shut the outside world off and meditate and relax.
Well, okay, but then I'll put on the hat of the skeptic here and say, but hey, wait a minute, I've heard that input from many different directions and different variations is a good thing to be more creative. And now you're saying cut off the input. What's going on with that?
Yes, no, it is a good thing. And as I told you, my job was for over 25 years to do exactly that. But something happened like 7 or 8 years ago. And what happened was that people got their smartphones. And in the beginning, that was great because then you could give yourself even more input and knowledge and connection with people. But I would say 6 years ago or something, people started telling me, I don't want more input. I have enough, Theo. Give me space to think, give me time to reflect, give me not inspiration, but rather peace of mind, so that my mind can come up with something new with all the input I already have. And I think you would agree that today most people or many people are addicted to what the phone can give you in the shape of news and facts and inspiration. And so it is a good thing, but up to a point. And I find it very interesting to be on your show just today, but I would say that just now is kind of a tipping point where the world, our world at least, is shifting from give me more inspiration and facts to give me more inspiration and facts, but please also time to reflect.
I mean, this is wow. This is so interesting and such an insight as well when we come to the point, because I can just go to myself when I find myself being lazy in the sense that I can always pick up my phone and get an external stimulants into my brain. I don't have to think. I don't have to ponder. I can just feed me more brain dumping information. And it's like turning my head off by just adding. I can always pick up the phone. There's always something there, and it's very addictive as well. But in your retreat or when you work with people, do people sort of happily hand over their phone and say, hey, thank you for here's my phone, I'll give it back to me in 2 days? Or how does that work when we come to you?
Yes, then let me answer that in 2 steps. When people actually come here and we ask them to give the phone away, they are in a sense primed to do that. They know that they are going to a retreat. They want to do that. So they are happily giving the phone over, but giving us the phone. That said, after a day or two, some people might come and say, I need it back. But then we have a discussion and said, what do you really need it for? And most times they didn't actually need it. They just felt that they needed it.
Yeah.
The other answer to the question, though, is that when I talk to people outside of the retreats and tell them about the retreats, and for example, mention that part of it is being in silence with other people, not talking to them, another part is giving your phone in, it's so provoking to some people. They absolutely hate the fact that you actually just give an idea of giving the phone away, and they argue so hard why they don't need to do that. And I think about that a lot, actually. And I would so much encourage the people who fight the idea the most to give away the phone for 2 days probably are the ones that need it the most. And since we're talking innovation and creativity, I would also argue that if you talk about the topic of innovation and creativity, I mean, making new ideas happen, why don't you try a new idea giving your phone away just to see if it works or not? Just test it like an exercise. Is this making me more creative? If it doesn't, never leave your phone again. If it does, do it sometimes.
Now you're just being mean. You're actually asking people to try something new, right?
Yes. And most people like that, but the phone is so strong, so it's hard for people. It's hard.
But again, that's so it, because and I know that we've touched on this before when we've talked, you and me, but the concept of people that they think that they love trying new things.
Yes.
But it's like within the comfort zone of trying new tech or going to a new place or whatever it could be. But when you ask them to actually go outside of that, like, okay, well, fine, take away all tech then. They go,
Yeah.
oh, no, I'm not prepared. That's not, that's not good new. That's bad new kind of thing, right?
And another fun part of the retreats is actually that people look at retreats and rightly so, as a place where you are cut off, quiet, don't speak, don't give yourself input. But actually part of the retreat is having 4 or 5 hours of silence, meditating for 3 to 4 hours, and then joining each other in the room and actually sharing what happened. So you are actually talking to other people, but on a deeper level than you would if you were sitting in a brainstorm and just adding ideas. You're actually talking about how is your creativity working? What is happening with your brain? Are you thinking in a different way? So it's not like you sit in a cave meditating and don't do anything. You give yourself energy by meditating and reflecting and being silent, and then also you share what you experience and see if you can learn from the other people. So it's and I find this very interesting also, that people will say that it's you become more creative if you meet a lot of people, a lot of new people. I think you would agree, you have that job.
Indeed.
But it's interesting to see on what level are you actually meeting people. Are you just chatting around and bragging about your life, or are you actually interested in that person's view on creativity? So I would say that maybe if you spend 2 days on a retreat, you actually talk to more people on a deeper level than you do in a week in Stockholm, running around meeting a lot of people, being nice. Nothing wrong about that, but maybe not as developing.
No, but I think you're very, very right about that. And I mean, okay. So there's this another perspective of that is when people do go away for, say, a day of workshop or 2 days of corporate conference.
Yes.
They tend to load in as much as they can in the program. So it's like jam packed from 9 in the morning to 9 in the evening, and a dinner and a dance. And then in the morning again, it's up again and do it all over again. And then they leave going sort of, oh, what happened kind of thing. And just by, here's 2 hours of nothing, as in reflection time.
Yes.
And then people go, but we can't just have people doing nothing for 2 hours. We have to do, it's a scary sort of concept of adding the reflection time. But I think that is so important, because again, I'm going to myself here as the bad example, because just what you said, when it's, I can find that 2 or 3 weeks have passed and I've run or been to another 6 or 7 events, I've met hundreds of people, I've even done something really, really good and actually in a help somebody or whatever, but it's just a part of it's a mass of constant happening things, and there's no reflection at all. It's just as a race. I just reflected on that, didn't I?
Yes, you did. But I think most people recognize that you go to a conference, say a TEDx conference for a full day, for example, and you get all this input, and then maybe in the bath that night, or when you're going to sleep, then all the ideas and input that you got from the conference is kind of bubbling up from the subconscious, which is the creativity, and then you have the ideas in the bathtub because you went to the conference, but also because you had the bath.
Yes,
we need both. And that I think most businesses and most incubators and most innovators are neglecting the take the bath time and spend the time giving yourself inputs. And we need to take that part, even if it's meditating, or if it's taking a bath, or if it's taking a run, whatever it is, to kind of shut the brain off and go deeper. We need to look at that in a serious way, and not the way, because I agree with you. People might look at this as non-serious and wasting time, but we all recognize that most of the time that is when we actually do get the ideas. It's time to take that seriously.
But that's a really interesting discussion, because I've had this discussion myself with companies, because if we sit and speak to them like this, they can rationally agree with us that yes, there is the input time, and then there's the off time when things happen, like in the bath or shower time or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
But they're so reluctant to enable that, because it goes against the grain of what being at work is, kind of thing.
No, yes.
So how do you address that when you work with businesses, the whole sort of that issue?
I found that the easiest way is kind of touching on what we just talked about, that they go to themselves and kind of realize that, whoops, this is where I get the ideas. So most people actually recognize and are comfortable with that, and say, okay, I do that. And the hard part is convincing them that you do it, so other people do it as well. So maybe you should come as a group and discuss this together. It's harder in that way, but there's no easy answer to that question, actually. It's very different.
But then again, I'm coming back to what you said before as well. I mean, I'm guessing that the people who've sort of signed up to come up to your retreat and be there, they've already sort of mentally there. I mean, they're all sort of, yes, I'm buying into this concept. Which of the people do you feel that probably need it the most are the ones that are, most furthest away from you?
I might not answer your question really, but I do think that this is kind of early. I see a change right now, and I would say we are early on this curve with how many people are able, interested, and committed enough to look at this part of business, the retreat business. So I would say that don't rush it. Don't force people that aren't ready, that are still stuck in the old, that we need more input and information all the time, and that's the problem. And start with the people that are early adopters in a way, and there's enough of them. And if we give them a chance to look at this part of business, retreat, reflect, rethink, I think that's the way to address it. Don't force people that aren't ready, but give the chance to people who actually are. And I think many people will be inspired by them when they come home and have learned about their creativity, have given themselves knowledge and depth, and start changing the way they live their lives, and become more creative. Other people will kind of look at them and say, I want to be that person too.
Yeah, maybe
you should come, Donny.
Maybe I should come. I'm just nodding here because there's so many things that just rings true, and you don't start with the hardest impossible sell. You start where you feel that you can get something going, and then the rings on the ripple effect on the water, it will spread, and then people will see that it actually works, and then they will warm to it, and then they will, and they'll come to it once they see that it works, kind of thing. So I completely agree with that. I'd happily come. I can tell you again, to myself, sorry for interrupting you there, but had you asked me like 3 years ago, I would probably have said, no, I don't have time. I don't have mental time capacity to actually go there and feel comfortable with relaxing. But today, 3 years later, I'm in a different place also mentally. And I'm much more prepared to come visit.
Yeah, I think many people are in that place actually. But it's fun. We can go back to the TEDx, right? Because you remember when we worked with TED and started to describing the idea of taking their brand and putting an X behind it and letting people around the world try it, and a lot of people was totally against. Most people were against it. People at TED was against it as well. And of course, it took some time. But the people who went to the first TEDx and the second TEDx, they were actually the one organizing the 22nd and the 23rd, and it's kind of grew. And today there are tens of thousands of TEDx conferences. They weren't ready 10 years ago, but they are ready now. So at the right time for the right person, as always, also with retreats.
So business idea, retreat. You hear it from Teo. You heard it today. Perfect. I'm looking at the time.
If I can say, I must say that with all the work I have done so far with business creativity, I would say that this is the most rewarding. I could actually see the change in a way that you didn't really see when you were on the stage talking to 200 people. Of course, there were people getting inspired, but now you actually see people growing in creativity, and I find that very inspiring, actually.
I can imagine that. Like just enabling the time away and actually giving people helping them get the gift of being with themselves and reflecting without the added another bunch of inputs. And then, of course, as you said, it's an active retreat, though. It's not just it's not an ashram where you're quiet for 3 days. You're actually meditating, and then you're actually reflecting on that together with other people. So it's an active component as well.
And maybe I should add now that I'm the biggest fan of inspirational days and inspirational conferences. And,
I know.
And Innovation Fika, and TEDx events. And I love it. And I absolutely love that I can sit here in the countryside in a mansion and get all that input. But I must say that to be able to just pull the plug and go sit by the lake for an hour, it adds an extra dimension.
I know I know that you always say, but we've talked about it. You've said that creativity isn't necessarily a place either. It's it's connected more to a person. So you can, especially the pandemic has shown us that you could actually be more or less anywhere, speaking to more or less anybody.
Yes.
You don't have to be in the same place as in a city or at the office, if it's not where you should be at that moment, of course. I know that's a big thing to talk about as well.
Yeah, I find it mind blowing, actually, how the possibility to be creative has been democratized by the internet. That in a way 15 years ago, Stockholm was the creative place in Sweden, and today it could be me sitting outside Gävle, you're sitting in Stockholm, and we could talk to someone sitting in the north of Sweden. It's been today, the difference is not in where you are, but how you choose to live your life at that place. Of course, you can live in Stockholm and never get new input and never reflect and never be creative. And of course, you can live in Luleå or Kiruna, and you can choose to take in input from the whole world and talk to people all over the world and give yourself a lot of inspiration and meditation, and you could live a great creative life. So It's not about location, it's about choice.
Yep. We had this is a live show, so we always have people asking questions. Here's one from Tom Magnegård. Hey Tom, good to see you online. Can you give us some good examples to ask while being on retreat? Whew. Okay. Do we have any
example of a good question to ask while being on a retreat? Maybe I haven't been really clear, but you can do the retreats in two ways. Either you focus on a topic to try to solve that one, or you focus on the creativity itself. And then you don't have a specific question to ask or a problem to solve, but rather you look inside to find your way of using your creativity, kind of getting to know it and then grow it. But you could also have a retreat where you focus on one question or one problem or one product development launch or whatever. And that's two different ways of using the retreat. And I should say also that a retreat is nothing new, obviously. For literally thousands of years, people have used retreats all over the world. And there are like blocks you use, like sitting in silence, meditating, using music, not talking to other people, being reflecting and writing, and using a lot of tools that we have learned literally 100,000 of years. And what we just do here at the retreat shortly is that we use these blocks of retreat knowledge, and you put them together and add business creativity. Mm-hmm. So it's just using knowledge that's been around for thousands of years, but in a slightly different way.
Yeah. Oh, very good. Look at the timer. It's 5 to 3. This is the world's fastest 30 minutes. And I know we never leave our viewers without the guest giving us some good and instructive tips and tricks. So Teo, please share with us your top 3 tips when it comes to either reflecting or how to enhance innovation through reflection. Give us your.
Yes, I must say, since I started educating myself in meditation, my number 1 point would be meditate. And people think that you have to do it in a different specific way, or the right way or the wrong way. You can't really fail. You put 30 minutes and you kind of Google what it is and you start trying it 5 minutes a day or 5 minutes a week. It's always a mandatory tip. If you watch this, go meditate for 5 minutes. And could I ask, just why don't you do it right now? You watch this talk for 25 minutes. When we're done here, don't go straight back to work. Turn the computer off, shut off your phone, and take 5 minutes to meditate on what we just talked about, and see what happens.
Fantastic.
Yes. Number two is if you work 200 days a year or something. You produce stuff, you do stuff, you meet people, you have a vision, you know where you're going, you do all that stuff. I would encourage you to take 2 days. Obviously, I would, because I have a retreat. But take 2 days a year and reflect on what am I doing the other 99% of my time. Because if you just spend time doing things year out and year in, and it's the wrong thing, it's one of the most unproductive things you can do. So take the 2 days. You don't have to go to retreat, but you go away from your home, you go away from your work, and you reflect on, am I doing the right thing? It could be, should I change my job? It could be, should I divorce my wife? But if you never ask those questions, you might live with the wrong wife, having the wrong job, just by doing the same thing over and over again. And I actually think that in 10 years, companies will compete to get talent by offering maybe 6 weeks vacation and 2 days reflection. I think they will look at it as a perk, where the winner would be the employer, but the employee would feel like it's a good thing for them as well.
That's another really good tip. Of the 200 days you're working per year, spend 2 days to reflect on the 198 days that are still there, actually, to work on. Very good.
Yes. And then I would say they're all connected and kind of narrow now, obviously. But I would say that we talked about taking the phone away, and I would encourage people to take 2 days without gadgets. But the 2 days before that, I would encourage you to double your input. So for 2 days, you do twice as much online than you do on an average day. You go to websites in China or Sri Lanka or Japan. You read books that you never thought about reading. Maybe you call a friend you haven't talked to in 10 years. So you give yourself a lot of new input for 2 days, and then you take the gadgets away for 2 days. And then on average, you would have given yourself the same amount of screen time and reflection as you would have, but you kind of divide it and say, okay, a lot of input, no tech, and see what happens. If nothing fun happens, then we do it again. If it does happen, you have a nicer life.
Wow, that's a really, I'm going to try that one.
Yes, I have a fourth one as well, since this is an Innovation Fika. And I call this 5-55. So if you are going on a brainstorm, you might argue that the brainstorm is the opposite of a retreat, because you're sitting with other people, you talk a lot, and you kind of have high energy. And I love brainstorms. A retreat is the opposite. It's like it is a brainstorm. A retreat is a brain stillness or calmness. So I would encourage people, the next time you are invited to go on a brainstorm with people for an hour, put 5 minutes away before you go and meet the other people, where you reflect on the problem that you're going to solve on the brainstorm. And let the other people that are coming to the brainstorm do the same thing. Sit in different rooms in different places and just reflect for 5 minutes. And then instead of having a brainstorm for 60 minutes, you have a brainstorm of 55 minutes. And then you come to the brainstorm with different input and depth, rather than just sitting with a high energy and kind of bragging of your ideas. So this is the 5-55 brainstorm instead of 60 minutes of brainstorm. It's very concrete and easy. And I think most people that try it like it. So you try that as well.
Teo, a true creativity expert that I mean, seriously, you've been working with this for so long, and you've written, what, 4-5 books on the subject?
4 books. Yeah.
4 books on the subject. So if anybody knows what they're talking about, it's Teo Härén. I can promise you that. And also really interesting to hear. And I mean, again, I'm learning so much from these conversations that I have with people every week as well. It's fascinating. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Thank you for being on the show. As everybody knows, this will be recorded and you will find it on YouTube. I'll repost it on LinkedIn as well. But I will say thank you so much to Teo, and I wish you a very Merry Christmas to you and your family. And I will see you online probably shortly again sometime. But I will also come up and visit you in Gävle. I promise to do that.
Yes, brilliant. You're so welcome.
I will. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for watching. And bye for now.